So we want to look at this scaling trick, giving f of 4x minus f of x equals 9x. We have to find f of x. Guys, this particular mathematical function looks like a differential equation actually, but is actually a linear puzzle. So if f of x is kind of is a line, so what is the slope? So I'm just asking in this normal question. So I'll show you the shortcut application. However, let's just say solution. So given the general expression, so that says f of x equals an x raised to power n. So then you have to decrease this and decrease the power as well. So we have an minus 1 x raised to power n minus 1. This continues until a0. So now let's plug the value that we need. What we need is 4x. Then okay, we have f of x here. So let's plug in 4x in place of x. We are going to have f of 4x will be an, then instead of x we are going to use 4x raised to power n, then plus a subscript n minus 1, then 4x raised to power n minus 1, plus this continues until a0. All right, but don't forget our given function. So says f of 4x minus f of x equals 9x. So what means is we have the difference of this. We have to subtract f of x from f of 4x. All right, to do that we will have an 4x raised to power n plus an minus 1 4x raised to power n minus 1 plus this continues until 0. So then we have minus here. We have minus. All right, so we have an x raised to power n plus an minus 1 x raised to power n minus 1. This also continues until a0. Everything here is equals to 9x. All right, so now let's begin to subtract. What we have here and here is an, right? So we have an here, a subscript n. So then we have, let's say we have bigger brackets, then we have 4x raised to power n. What we have here is minus, so then we have what is left here after we've taken our an. So we have x raised to power n. All right, so let's close the brackets. What is left is a subscript n minus 1. All right, so what is left now is 4x raised to power n minus 1. Then we have minus x raised to power n minus 1, right? This continues, right? So because a naught minus a naught to give us 0, right? So let's just equal everything to be 9x. Now we are going to do something interesting here. So if we let our n equals 1, we are going to have a1, then 4x raised to power 1 minus x raised to power 1 plus an, that is 1 minus 1. Then we are going to have 4x raised to power 1 minus 1 minus x raised to power 1 minus 1. This will continue. So and we are going to have equals 9x. So what we're going to have now is we have our a1, then 4x minus x will give us 3x, right? So then we have plus a naught, then we have for 1 minus 1, so that is 0, n raised to power 0 is 1, so we have 1 minus 1 plus this continues until we have 9x. So therefore, however, this will become 0, so because we let our n to be 1, so we are considering only this, and if we do, we are going to have 3a1x equals 9x. So but we are considering the coefficient of x here, so the coefficient of x here is 3a1 equals 9. Alright, so I've told you the reason why we use a1 is because we let our n to be 1. Alright, so now if we compare this, we are going to see that let's just divide both sides by 3. This will cancel out this, then we will have our a1 to be 9 divided by 3 will give us 3. So if a1 equals 3, right, what will be our f of x? Alright, so our f of x will be, remember the general expression we have that says an x raised to pi n. So remember we are only taking this one, so we have our an x raised to pi n. However, we let our n to be 1, so if you substitute it to be like this, we are going to have our f of x to be equals, what's our a, that is 3, right? So then we have our x, we have a constant here. Right, guys, this is our final solution. However, you can also help me try to solve this and drop your answer in the comment section. Given f of 5x minus f of x equals 7x. Solve this and drop your answer in the comment section. So what we're going to solve here is you solve for f of x. However, you can use the same general formula that says f of x equals a subscript n x raised to power n plus a subscript n minus 1 x raised to power n minus 1 plus it be a continuous function, so till we reach a raised to power a naught, right? So solve this and drop an answer in the comments. So we'll meet in the next video.